Yesterday, I went to a full-service car wash. The relevance, you ask. Do you guys want any light out there? Are you good? You're good, okay. We don't have the house lights on. You're all so bright. You don't need that. Your inner light shines. So I went to a full-service car wash yesterday, and the reason that's remarkable is I usually don't go to a full-service car wash. I go to the one where, you pay $8 and you drive through and you get it done, Check it off the list, it's done. But I got a new car. And so they tell you, don't go through those car washes with the brushes because it scratches your paint. And you know how it is in the beginning, you really baby your new baby, So I went to this car wash, and it cost me. It was $25, right? And it was a whole lot more time by the time I came in, and by the time the last person who worked in my car waved the towel at me and said, here you go. But it was worth it, because the results were quite different than when I go through the fast lane, So I would like our ministry to be considered a full-service ministry. You can dash in on Sunday and get a quick hit of spiritual inspiration, yeah? And that's fine. But when we look at our mission and we say that we inspire people to realize and express their divine nature, that is a very high calling. And to be able to fulfill that, to be able to make that a reality, it's going to take a whole lot more than coming in for a quick angel wash. And it's good. I mean, you can come in here and see your friends and those people who look at you with those, the light in their eyes and the love in their heart, and that's great, and it's important, and it's part of the journey. But if we just leave it at that, the depth of the possibilities of the fulfillment of realizing and expressing our divine nature is just not going to happen. I mean, you could be one of the lucky ones, that just has that stroke of insight, like Jill Bolte Taylor or Eckhart. Actually, his took 2 years on a park bench. That's not immediate either. He was in a full-service, 2-year-long queue for his awakening. But what we know is that success in spiritual awakening leaves clues. And if we can follow the path that works, then we increase our chances that we will get the maximum benefit out of our path, out of our program, and out of our ministry. Last week I spoke with you about another important aspect of the spiritual path, which is understanding that it's in our giving and expressing of ourselves that we realize our divine nature. That the paradox of generosity and sharing and serving is that we tap into this part of ourselves that is unfamiliar to us if we do not do that. And those of you who know this, well, you know it. And those of you who don't, you're invited to step into that next part of your spiritual journey, which invites you to go deeper into who and what you are, to become familiar with this capacious part of you that is unlimited, that has a bottomless well of abundance, of grace, of love, of peace, of generosity. That's, when we're doing our mission, that's what's happening here. And it isn't just happened for the folks that came a long time ago. It should be available to everyone who walks in. So what's happening here now that we have sort of settled some of the dust and recommitted to this community, to the leadership, and to a path forward, is that you're going to be seeing more opportunities for you to take the full service journey into your own spiritual development, unfoldment, and to realize your divine nature is going to be a result of what you put into what we offer. But we've got to offer it first. So we will continue to have these Sunday experiences, and they're fun and great and wonderful. But we're going to have more between Sundays. We're going to have more educational opportunities, more classes. I have several people who are willing to step in to the field of spiritual education with me, so we can have lots of different things going on, maybe more than once in a week. Of course, we have our spiritual groups that are starting up now, an opportunity for you to connect with others, which is extremely important. And the shared understanding of spiritual truths maximizes our experience of the divine. When Jesus said, when two or more are gathered, there I am, his invitation is that we don't try to just do this alone. We don't just go into the cave or the mountaintop or the monastic cave of spiritual growth. We must do it in groups as well as on our own. And we will continue to have service opportunities for you so that you can express your divine nature in service to each other. We will have the programs like the Mayan families and other ways that you can get involved and express yourself. Because we know that one size doesn't fit all. So one opportunity that might just be the right thing for you or for somebody else may not be the right thing for you. So we will continue to offer a variety of ways of getting your soul cleaned here at Unity of Santa Barbara. There will be more than one lane that you can go to. And the entry fee will be very low in terms of cost, but it may ask more of you in terms of commitment, dedication, and desire to grow and realize this most wonderful holy grail of all, which is to know who you are, to know the truth of your being, to know that you are the source unto all that you are seeking. That the whole journey that has taken us outside of ourselves, our whole life, most of us, comes to an abrupt about-face when we realize the truth of our being. And it asks us to turn around and to look within for what we have looked without. So as we go into this series that is based on this book, You Can't Sleep Through Your Awakening, it is a call for us to shake ourselves from our default, our normal way of seeing, our normal way of being is often quite asleep. Can we say it? That sometimes we're just asleep at the wheel. And we know that that doesn't work out on the highways. And how well is that working in your life? Now, you can continue to do it, and we do it, and we somehow get away with it. But the cost for us is that we miss this whole dimension of life, this whole dimension of love, this whole dimension of peace, when we are living our life just in our minds, in our head, in our planning, in our scheming, in what's next. And so we're going to be looking at all the different ways, as are articulated by this author, but you'll recognize them as familiar paths and familiar steps on the path of bringing ourselves back to this present moment, bringing ourselves back to the love and the peace and the joy that we already are, and it's going to involve us having to do some courageous things. It's going to ask us to look right in the face of some of our cherished, limited beliefs, our shadow. We're going to get into the shadow. And really, which is nothing more than the beliefs that we don't even want to acknowledge about ourselves, but yet they sort of run. They're the ones that are driving, and they're driving us into ditches, and they're keeping us from getting on the highway. They're keeping us from expressing all of who we are. So this will be a wonderful journey for us for these next 7 weeks, because it will squarely and resolutely keep us on the path of our mission. And the question that we have to ask ourselves in every moment is am I right now, am I committed to the path of my own spiritual awakening? Is this in line with the truth of my being, or have I gone to sleep and I'm being led by some notion of another time, another place, another face? So this is going to be a journey that takes us into this moment, into the present moment. That really is all that awakening is. A lot of people think it's 30 years of meditation and certain sort of spiritual techniques, and then if you're lucky, and this is your lifetime, like this is your life, this is your lifetime, you're going to wake up. But really, it's not as complicated or as distant, because it's what you are. And we're going to sort of decomplexify this notion of awakening. Because if it's something that's only for, the monastic person who can devote his life to meditation, then most of us would discard it, wouldn't we? We'd say, I don't have time. I can't meditate 4 hours a day, and I can't live that life. I've got bills to pay and kids to feed and jobs to go to, and the people I work with, and the in-law situation I have right now, and we would have all these reasons because that would just be too much of a calling. So we're going to bring it down, and we're going to start this week with bringing it down to the most common denominator and the most powerful and effective way for us to awaken ourselves right now. But let's have a little fun here. We're going to show a video clip. Penny, if you'll bring up the clip. How many of you seen the original Matrix movie? Yeah, most of you have. You'll recognize this scene. And this is Neo's opportunity to make a choice about waking up.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. Follow me.
So that's all this full service ministry is offering you, the truth and nothing more. It should be enough, but we like all the other little accoutrements of a spiritual community as well. But primarily we're here for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And, Jesus was, he was into that too, He was into the truth, and he was living from the realization of it. And he said very simply that you will know the truth, and the truth will what? Set you free. But you got to think of what's the flip side of that. If you don't know the truth, then you are living in what? In bondage, or you're living in prison, or you're living in some form of a mind-made reality which keeps you from experiencing the fullness of life. This is not some horrible thing. It's just the default that so many of us fall into. We find ourselves going around all the time thinking about, what's next and what's next and what's next, and we miss the step that we're stepping on, And the red pill, we're going to bring it down to the simplest common denominator of spiritual awakening. The red pill simply means to be present. That's the red pill. The red pill is to say, right now, am I alive? Because in answering that question, you have to go from the mind into being. You have to check in. You have to see that you're breathing. Yes? How else do you know you're alive? I mean, you can maybe feel aliveness, but most of us go, and just that awareness moves from the mind into the embodied sense of being. And that is where you live and move and have this truth. But most of us are living in not this moment, but one that went before us, or the one that's coming next, don't we? We live on this horizontal, time-bound awareness, and it keeps us out of this and the knowing of this. She uses a wonderful word in there. Most of us are involved most of the time in nexting. It's not on your phones. It's in your mind. You're nexting. What's next? And Eckhart Tolle has a bunch of funny little quips about that, and he talks about, whenever you're doing something, you're really not aware and conscious of what you're doing. You're thinking of it as a means to an end. Like even, when you're making the coffee, you're thinking about drinking the coffee, right? And when you're bathing, you're thinking about, then I have to get dressed, and when you're getting dressed, you're thinking about getting to work or getting to your appointment. There's this addiction that we have to the past and the future. And it's okay to plan, and it's okay to have a mind that can be useful for the navigating the time-based perceptual world that we live in. But when that is the only place that we live and move, we miss the experience of the presence, which is in the present moment. And if you and I are going to become familiar with this life that is with a capital L, that is not our life circumstances, it's not our behavior, our biography, it's not what happens, it's not the circumstances of our life, but the life that we are, the life that lives us, we got to come back to this moment. It says in Genesis, I think, that a deep sleep fell upon Adam. And nowhere in there does it say that he woke up, right? So I'm sure women would agree that Adams are still sleeping in their life, But if we understand that this notion of going to sleep is simply just you and I getting lost in the story of our lives as opposed to living the life that's seeking to live through us. That is the opportunity that we're going to have. And we're going to start this week with this first lesson called Red Pill Awakening. And if you are reading the book, which we do have in the bookstore, called You Can't Sleep Through Your Awakening. Bookstore, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is right here on the last office on this side. The reading pages are up through 28 of the book, and the next week the reading pages will be 29 through 52. And all of that is in this little study guide that we have prepared for you. It's very simple. If you're going to be in a group, you'll be working with this. If you would like a copy of this and you're not sure if you're going to be in a group, we have a number of them out on the table right out here across from the connection spot. So please feel free. We ask for a $5 donation, but we want you to have them. So that's what's going on. And we have actual affirmation this week, and it's the next slide. Penny, if you'll bring that up. The thing that sometimes is the other paradox that we have in our life is that sometimes that we think that our difficulties in life are the things that keep us from our spiritual awakening. Like if I didn't have this disease right now, or if I wasn't dealing with this relationship problem right now, or if I had more time right now, or you have your story, we all have a story about what's preventing us from really focusing on our spiritual growth and unfoldment. But the beautiful paradox about the spiritual life, it doesn't care. It's not a respecter of your life and circumstances. It cares nothing because it's primary and it's prior to every experience that you would ever have. And so it's available, therefore, in every experience that you might have. And sometimes the great grace of the universe reveals this truth of us when we're going through the most difficult circumstance of all. That somehow that awakening process is prompted by the challenges of life, makes us more likely to ask the question, who am I now, right? Without this situation that I thought was who I was, a job, a situation, a relationship, a state of finances. And when that's gone, we ask ourselves the question, who am I now? So we allow the circumstances of our life to be grist for the mill of our own awakening. And that's what we're working with this week. So we're going to get the butts out of the way in this journey of awakening. Let's say this together. Every challenge in my life is an opportunity for self-transformation. Do you believe that? Yes. And those of you who don't, what if you explored it as a possibility? If you held it as a hypothesis that you're going to test in the petri dish of your own life, yes? And just see how this might be true. And sometimes you have to inquire into situations that otherwise would close you down and put you back to sleep. It's like, how is this situation, which seems to be contrary to my preference for the ideal life, the heaven on earth that I was hoping for, how is it actually opening an aperture of opportunity into the light of my own being? That question can oftentimes turn your experience from one that seems to be against you to that which is conspiring for your awakening. Can you work with that this week? To the good days and the bad days, this is a full service truth path that we offer here. If it's just for when you're doing something good or when, God's smiling upon you or you've been blessed in some outer way, then it isn't a path of absolute truth. We're here to make real the promise that I am with you always and that you cannot be limited or the truth cannot be kept from you no matter what's going on. Many of you live this and know this, and many of us are waking up to know a little bit more of it every day. It is seemingly a journey, and that journey can reveal the beauty of this work that we do together. Share your stories when it happens for you, when you have these breakthroughs, when you see the light, the lining inside the dark cloud. Share it with each other. This is how we can support each other in a time of difficulty, because we've all been through something that somebody else hasn't gone through. We all have the capacity to be a minister unto somebody else because we have had the experience of something that has given us concrete, real evidence of how this truth works and how it breaks through in the midst of all of life's circumstances. We know that oftentimes the resurrection in our own lives follows a crucifixion of some kind. That something dies and then something new is born. Some new life form or some new awareness. Some new understanding of the depth of our being can be born when something that is temporary goes away. This is the power of these teachings to resurrect us, to liberate us, to free us from the suffering of a mind-based, a sleeping existence. We're waking up and we're going to do it together. Yes? Yes. Very good.